So my name is Andre, and I'm from Brazil. Right now I'm a design manager at Squarespace, so I help overseeing a lot of the web design work we do. One of the challenges that I'm going through right now is this idea of going from individual contributor to a management position. There's a lot of learning along the way, a lot of kind of soft skills you got to learn, things beyond just be able to design. So that's kind of like from a personal level, those are the things that I've been really, kind of having to learn. When it comes to work, I think a lot of the challenge we have, it's really, so I help overseeing a lot of the front side work, so a lot of the squarespace.com work. So there's a lot of stakeholders, right? Everyone, they really have a lot of things to say, people from all departments at the company. So a big part of the challenge is really juggle all those feedback and opinions and interests. So it's kind of like bringing all those things together in a cohesive way and making sure that the site really represent everyone's point of view. So our workflow is pretty standard compared to some other places that I've worked. Sketch, Principle. So the tools we use are not very different from any other place, especially web design places. We actually, in the past, 2 years ago, we were using Photoshop, so we had to transition and kind of, making sure that all the style guides and all those things kind of converted to Sketch. So that took a little bit of time. But other than that, the tools we use are pretty standard. And when it comes to workflow, we do a lot of, again, I think it's very similar to some places that I've worked in the past, with this idea of doing research and really seeing what's out there, and then after that, kind of brainstorming a lot of ideas, whiteboarding a lot of those things, and really trying to come up with as many ideas as possible. Once we have a few directions that we like, then we move to design comps and really kind of fleshing out some of the visuals. We often work very closely with the developers. Kind of prototyping things along the way and really pushing the design, not just from like a visual standpoint, but from an interactive standpoint, and making sure the things we're building, it has some flair to it and kind of feels a little bit more unique. So having the developers earlier on really help, making sure that the project's a little more engaging. So my talk today will be about really going from agencies and start working in tech for the first time. Throughout my career, I spent over a decade working at agencies, from bigger agencies, small agencies, and everything in between. And then that's the first time now that I'm working in-house. So there's a lot of learnings and a lot of like pros and cons on both sides. So I really want to kind of just cover my experiences, and hopefully by sharing some of those experiences, people can take something away. Because I actually, a lot of designers that I've met nowadays, especially younger designers, they either never worked at a agency or in-house. So there's this kind of like, to me, it's kind of sometimes baffling that people they don't have the experiences on both. So it's kind of like, okay, things are not always done this way. There are different approaches. You can really think through problems in different ways. So I think having those experiences, or at least sharing those experiences, hopefully will open people's eyes and kind of attention to thinking through the problems in different ways. So right now I'm really excited about AR and web AR. I think recently Google Chrome for mobile started supporting a little bit of AR. We haven't done anything using AR, at least we haven't shipped anything using AR at Squarespace yet. But I think this application of AR, especially on your phone, I think there's something very powerful there. I'm not the biggest fan of VR in general. I think there's a lot of catch up to do. I always feel sick when I'm using those goggles. It always kind of throws me off. But I think AR, it seems to be striking an interesting balance of technology and kind of really pushing without feeling so. It's still immersive, but it doesn't feel so kind of invasive. So I think that's what I'm excited when it comes to kind of upcoming technologies right now. So the next big thing to me, I think, is using machine learning to create, artificial environments, either in AR or VR. I think there's something there when you combine those two technologies. Again, I haven't done anything, or we're not doing anything on that area at Squarespace yet. I think it's really further down the pipe. But I think this idea of combining like a machine learning and kind of a technology that can generate things dynamically and environments that can be built through this kind of type of technology, I think there's something powerful in there as well. I'm looking forward for the time when we have actually kind of flying cars and kind of Jetson kind of vibes. I can't wait for us to get to that point and everything. It's so kind of sci-fi. But I think realistically, right now all those technologies are really kind of still very early development, and everything still needs a lot of maturation. So to me, I think the biggest challenge right now is really understanding how those technologies can play out in our day-to-day life, right? I think we're still like cryptocurrencies or social networks. So how those different ways of interacting and moving money and doing things will affect us as human beings. I think that's the biggest challenge, really understanding the social norms and how we want to be as a society by having those enhanced capabilities.